Shocked! Is the Three Gorges giant water wall facing its greatest challenge in history? Millions of Chinese people are living in fear as the surrounding Area Three Gorges Dam, the world's largest hydroelectric project, face to face. The terrible flash flood was unprecedented in many years. Heavy rain that lasted for many days turned rivers in the upper Yangtze into raging torrent, putting all the pressure on the giant dam, which was already near its safety limit. According to the latest figures from China Meteorological Administration, rainfall in the Sichuan and Chongqing areas has 300% higher than the multi-year average, causing reservoir water levels to spike in just a few days. Hydraulic pressure surge forcing authorities to activate highest level warning and proceed emergency flood discharge tow, avoid the risk of dam failure. Satellite images released by many international agencies show several dikes and drainage canals around the Three Gorges area were flooded. Floodwaters flooded many riverside residential areas. A series of towns in Hubei, Anhui, and Jiangsu provinces submerged in water. Tens of thousands of households forced to evacuate at night. On social media, Chinese citizens shared shocking footage. Cars were swept away, houses collapsed, and murky water swept everything away. Three Gorges, China's technological pride, can withstand the terrible power of nature. That question is making the whole world watch every hour. No one expected that in the middle of a peaceful autumn, nature's wrath came down so violently. Hundreds of kilometers around Three Gorges Dam, the sky was immersed in a heavy gray, the sound of rain falling heavily and incessantly for many days. Upstream, Yangtze River water level rose to red alert levels, the highest since the 1998 flood. According to preliminary statistics, within just 72 hours, the amount of water flowing into the Three Gorges Reservoir has exceeded 75,000 cubic meters per second. A huge number that could engulf an entire city if it got out of control. The government was forced to open all 11 floodgates, creating a scene like an upside-down sea, with giant water columns tens of meters high erupting violently. A series of videos circulating online show floodwaters sweep away everything in its path, from cars, houses, to electric poles. In Hubei province, many residential areas were completely submerged. One resident recounted, "We just grabbed a few sets of clothes and ran. It was all over in a few minutes." According to Chinese hydrological experts, main cause of this historic flood comes from extreme climate complex. Heavy rain due to tropical storms, combined with climate change, causing unusually heavy and prolonged rain. However, some international experts question whether is the Three Gorges Dam taking on too many tasks at once. Flood control, electricity generation, and waterway transportation. The reservoir is always at a high water level to ensure electricity capacity, causing flood capacity is significantly reduced. When heavy rains come, the dam has almost no safety buffer zone. A report by the Wuhan Institute of Water Resources also said the pressure on the dam body increased by 20% compared to the average design, raising concerns about structural stability. Although Chinese officials assured that the structure was still within the safety threshold, many netizens expressed doubts when satellite images showed some areas around the dam body show signs of slight deformation. When the floodwaters are released, many downstream provinces were severely affected. In Anhui, more than 60,000 hectares of crops were washed away. Hundreds of livestock farms were destroyed. In Jiangsu, water rose to the roof. People had to climb onto roofs to wait for rescue. Highways along the Yangtze River were cut off, making food and fuel supplies extremely difficult. Estimated initial economic damage exceed 10 billion yuan, but the actual number could be much higher as the flood recedes. More worryingly, domestic water source in many areas, there is heavy pollution, leading to the risk of disease outbreaks after floods. The heat of information about the risk of collapse spread quickly not only in China, but also around the world. Many international news agencies, such as Reuters, CNN, NHK, constantly updated satellite imagery and flow reports. Some analysts warn that if the Three Gorges Dam, 181 meters high and more than 2.3 kilometers long, fails, hundreds of millions of people downstream may be affected, including large cities such as Wuhan, Nanjing, Shanghai. Although Beijing authorities insist the dam was built to the highest safety standards in the world, public concerns remain. Millions of shares with the hashtag on Weibo related hashtag Shahs become the hottest topic of the week, with thousands of comments praying and criticizing the slow regulatory work. Present more than 100,000 rescuers, along with thousands of large-capacity water pumps mobilized to flooded areas. Provinces are building a series of dams, temporary dikes and shelters, and coordinate chain-regulated discharge to reduce the load on the Three Gorges. At the same time, experts suggest reassessment of the entire reservoir system along the Yangtze River, increase flood escape capacity, and more accurate meteorological forecasts. Some also suggest that China should reduce power generation capacity during the rainy season to create safe capacity for the reservoir. But the big question remains, is the world's greatest dam really invincible? Because when humans challenge the limits of nature, sometimes just one small mistake is enough to create a disaster of the century. In the dim light of dawn, after days of torrential rain, the surrounding scenery Yangtze River the scene was as tragic as a torn picture. Water still reached the roofs. Mud covered the fields that had just failed. And in the cold wind, people quietly cleaned up what was left after nature's fury. In the distance, Three Gorges Dam, a symbol of human strength, pride, and ambition to conquer nature, still stands there, towering in the middle of the sea. But for the first time in more than 2 decades of operation, that great work must face its real limits. Millions of people downstream were evacuated. Thousands of homes disappeared overnight. Once fertile fields were reduced to dry, cracked mud. And in the eyes of those who had just escaped the raging waters, we saw one thing: helplessness before nature and skepticism about what humans once believed to be eternal. International environmental experts have repeatedly warned, climate change is no longer a distant future, but the current is fierce. The frequency of extreme heavy rains in China has increased by more than 30% in just 20 years, while natural forest land, a shield against floods, is decreasing sharply due to urbanization. Those cold numbers paint a scary picture. People half change the flow of nature too fast, too strong, and sometimes too arrogant. The Three Gorges, though an engineering marvel, cannot escape that rule. When the water pressure exceeds the endurance, when the riverbed is silted up, when the rain no longer follows the law, all human calculations become fragile. A veteran engineer in the construction supervision team shared, "We used to believe that this dam could withstand anything, but now I understand. Nothing is absolutely safe. We can control the water, but we cannot control nature." Since its completion in 2006, Three Gorges Dam seen as a symbol of modern Chinese power, creating more than 100 billion kilowatt-hour of electricity per year, reducing hundreds of minor floods, and generating tens of billions of dollars in profits. But every penny of that benefit comes at the cost of some accumulated risk. The constant storage of water at high levels to ensure electricity production makes flood control capacity is gradually decreasing, and just one consecutive string of extreme rains the dam would come under terrible stress. Independent scientists have predicted that, In the worst case scenario, if the Three Gorges loses its ability to control flood discharge, more than 400 million people in the lower Yangtze River could be affected, with major cities such as Wuhan, Nanjing, Shanghai seriously threatened. Those numbers are more than just a warning. They're a reminder that technology cannot replace respect for nature. Amidst the rubble, small stories still quietly touch millions of hearts. A mother in Anhui said she swam through rushing water to save her child. An old man in Jiangsu saved his wedding photo but lost his entire farm. A group of volunteers from Wuhan traveled 18 hours in rubber boats to rescue stranded people. Those stories are proof that, when nature challenges humanity, compassion and solidarity are the only things stronger than fear. In a disaster, people no longer care who is right or wrong, but only think about how to survive, how to save each other. Satellite images after the flood show Yangtze River changes color. Red mud sheets spread hundreds of kilometers out to sea. From the air, China's legendary river now looks like a long bleeding wound. But that is also reflection for the entire planet. Wherever man tries to force nature to conform to his will, sooner or later he has to pay the price. Not only China, from Europe, India, to Southeast Asia, floods of the century are appearing more densely than ever. Modern systems of dams, embankments, and flood control works continue to be exceeded, all of which points to one fact: nature has changed, and we have not changed enough to adapt. Scientists propose many solutions: restoring mangrove forests, expanding natural flood storage areas, redesigning urban planning towards flexible flood prevention. But above all, the biggest lesson is not in the technology, but in awareness. Only when humans understand that they are just a part of nature, not its masters, can tragedies like today's Three Gorges be prevented. In the future, China will face difficult decisions: continue to expand its massive dam system, or find ways to live in more harmony with its rivers. Because sometimes, 1 meter of free-flowing water more valuable than hundreds of billions of kilowatts of electricity. As the sun finally rose after a historic rainstorm, its weak rays reflected on the surface of the Three Gorges Lake, where people and nature were temporarily at peace again. But behind that peaceful appearance, everyone understands that nature's wrath never really ends. It's just waiting for us to learn our lesson. One day, if the Yangtze River rises again, hopefully people will not only look to the concrete wall, but also know how to look back: balance, humility, and respect for nature. Because sometimes, the true strength of a nation does not lie in giant structures, but in the ability to know how to listen to the voice of heaven and earth.